name.
Yeah, nice Irish name is right. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today, an absolute treat. Chief Brian Nardelli out of Brockton, Massachusetts. Chief, thanks for joining me again on the show, man.
Jeremy, thank you for having me back. Great experience.
You are, I'm telling you right now, like I say this a lot, but my list is getting longer and longer because as I do more and more of this, I get to meet incredible people. You are certainly an absolute gentleman and a gracious host. I was up in the Brockton area and I spent basically the day with you. You toured me around your city. You introduced me to the fellas. I have to tell you, it was a great experience. And I was empty-handed, so when I came to see you, it was more about just coming to see you. And then I didn't know we were going to run around and do everything we did. So I actually left, went to a bakery, came back to drop off baked goods for the guys, because I'm a firm believer that, listen, if you're going to visit and throw off the guy's day, right? The guys have a schedule, they do what they do, and when a guest comes around, sometimes when they hang around too long, you got to make that right. So I always thought doing the right thing. So I always try to bring something with me. So I went back and delivered something to them after you and I parted ways, and these guys didn't stop, man. They were running all day.
It's a busy. We're a busy department. I think we talked about this before a little bit. Brockton's 26 square miles, probably close to 110,000 people. We do about upwards of 40,000 runs a year. We're moving all the time. We still get good fire duty. It's an old New England city, old mill city. Seen better days, but now we got some stuff going that's good downtown. So we'll see what happens. But it's good. I'll tell you, the guys were so grateful to have you there. Like a celebrity walked in the room, and they would throw
no way. Not even close.
A number of times wearing your Brockton Fire sweatshirt.
I wear it all the time. I love it.
They've seen some posts, and they're like, "I'll get a text. Oh my God, he's wearing it again."
Well, it was a nice treat by you, so thank you. And like I said, you and all of your guys at multiple companies were just awesome. And I want to talk about that trip a little bit because it was a day trip that I had some time, and I said, let's get together, and you were gracious enough to show me around. But what I love doing is touring the cities or the townships or the counties, wherever that guys work. And for you, you're homegrown, man. You know that city inside and out. And I want to talk about that because there was an absolute sense of ownership by you when we toured the city. And you're telling me about historical things that happened on this block. And then, of course, every building we passed, you're like, we had a fire in there. We had a good fire there. That was a third alarm, this one, that one. So, I mean, you're definitely in, and I mean in deep with your city. You have an unbelievable passion for it.
I do. And born and bred, I've lived here my whole life. Good, bad, or indifferent, right? I love the city. I have and I probably said this, you probably heard me say it before. I have an opportunity to have a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. I mean, I get to work with the best of the best. And you saw it that day, right? You had the ability to spend time in the kitchen, at the kitchen table, and talk to these guys and different houses, this, that, the other thing. I am so fortunate, being a fire chief, I deal with a lot of fire chiefs. I was with a whole bunch of fire chiefs today at a meeting, and you talk to a lot of fire chiefs that they're doing this, and they're driving me crazy with this, and then this is bothering me. The union's bothering me. This is bothering me. City of town's bothering me. I truly say this, and I hate to, because for anyone listening out there that might not be in that situation, I am blessed. I have a city that values the fire department. I have a union that I work hand in hand with on a regular basis. I have a membership of 232 firefighters that buy in. They buy into it. I'm not sure if we had the heavy rescue in service when you came. We got a 10th company back up and running that we hadn't had since 1991, and everyone bought in. We've gotten new apparatus, and we've had to change some things because of the new apparatus. They bought in. They understand the value of what we're trying to accomplish, and they understand that value because we're trying to say, hey, what do you think about this? We're building a new public safety building. And I knew we drove by there briefly, and it's going to be tough because that station you were at that you brought the stuff back to, that station will be closing. And that station is near and dear to my heart.
That is history, man.
Yeah,
That
it
place,
is.
the walls were just screaming history and tradition and culture,
So it's
all of it.
yeah, and that's the beauty of that, and so that's difficult. I'll tell you a funny story about that. We when we do the when we run our own drill schools, when we run the drill schools, we have a retired firefighter from Boston that comes in that teaches the emergency vehicle operations course. He's an incredible guy. He's been retired. He's still so into the fire service. And every time he comes in, he loves the old soapstone sink on the apparatus
Yes.
for soap sink. And he loves the Baraxo powdered soap. He said, this
Yeah,
is when you know you're really in
absolutely.
the firehouse. So we're putting that in the new building just because of that. But I guess my point is it's bittersweet to move out of that building. But the beauty of moving into that building is Deputy Chief Galligan, who's worked very closely with me on working to get this building squared away and get us going in the right direction. We've formed groups and committees to say, hey, we need someone to look at how we're doing the logbooks and all the old logbooks. Where are we storing them? We've looked at groups of individuals to say, hey, you're the company commander of ladder company 2. We have a ladder rack storage we're putting in here. I need you to make sure this is good to go. So we want buy-in because,
Yes.
and I say this all the time, my job is to give a couple of stares here and there once in a while. Firefighters that come to work every day and they're going out those doors, they are the ones that make the ship run. We wouldn't be moving forward if it wasn't for them. I have the opportunity of just being able to sit there and watch most of it happen. And that's the beauty of the people that we have. We have great people and they're all bought into what we're doing. And I appreciate them every day because of that, because you could be in a different situation. And it's difficult. We've had some tough times over the last few years. We've lost some firefighters, whether it be line of duty death or active duty death, and that can tear a department apart. You see
Yes.
a lot of places that stuff can go sideways.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, our folks have lockstep and been there for the families and been there for one another and been there to hold one another up through good, bad, and indifferent. And it does my heart good because I get to witness that. And why I say that is when I came on in 1996, they said to me, Captain Jack Keating said to me, you remember, you always got to leave this place, whatever you do in this department, you got to leave it better than you found it. And I took that, and my generation took that. Our generation took that to heart and put us in
Yes.
a position. We want to make sure that when we walk out the door, when our time is done, that we've done a lot of good for the Brockton Fire Department, for the fire services as a whole.
Well, I can tell you this, right? I mean, you just said a lot there in the last few minutes because I witnessed all of that and more, and just in my short visit. How about like chief of department comes into the firehouse and has a cup of black coffee with the boys upstairs, and the mutual respect within that room and the ribbing and the relationship, the give and take, and knowing that you have their back, and in return they're going to have yours. There has to be tremendous buy-in. And I remember reaching out to you when something was going down, and I said, not in the fire service, and I had just said to you, like, why have so many chiefs lost their way, their connection back to the backstep fireman? Because all chiefs, I mean, you're still a fireman, right? Like, you don't, just because you promote and move up the rank, it doesn't mean you're not a fireman, right? It's like, why do so many lose their way? They get lost in the minutia of it all, and they lose track of those relationships. And for you guys with this move, right? I mean, to get buy-in from your people is by allowing them to have a say in how it goes and involve them in the process. And I think that only comes from a true leadership team, because I know it's not just you. I know it's your whole cabinet, right? Your command staff and so on. But to involve the union and the firefighters and the officers and ladder 2, make sure you guys protect this one thing. I want it your way. Like, there's so much there. And I think people in the fire service, so many are starving for an environment like that, starving for it.
And we're very fortunate. I think, again, I go back to the generation of my generation that's like the most senior people in the department now. We were born out of a very difficult time. And I know we've discussed this on the side. We were born out of a very difficult time where they had layoffs. The city was in shambles. There was no money. And when I got on the job, things were tough. You made do with what you had. but you were so happy to be here. I think I can't speak for every fire chief, like you said. I think there are so many incredible chiefs out there that I work with on a regular basis, and I think they I don't know, maybe they take things personally. Maybe, trust me, you don't think there's times when guys are in my office, whether it be
100%.
or this one, that we're not, no question. But you know what? After this, it's this.
That's right.
And because we know amongst us, we're fighting for the greater good. We're not fighting because, so and so doesn't want to go on these calls anymore. So and so doesn't want to do this anymore. We're fighting or going against one another at a time for what we think is right.
Yes.
Whether that be from a labor perspective, whether that be from a backstep firefighter perspective, the company commander, the house captain, whoever that may be, they may think there is a better way. I'll tell you right now, if I didn't have that, I'd be concerned. If I had a bunch of sheeps coming up the street, I'd be deeply concerned.
I love
that. There has to be someone, and I've said this, and amongst our command staff, we've said this a lot. And I just had this conversation with Deputy Gallagher the other day. We were making a purchase. It's the end of the fiscal year. We were trying to make a purchase that we didn't know we could make at the beginning of the year. And I said, this is what we're doing. He goes, really? And his eyes went wide. I said, tell me why not? My point being is someone needs to say the emperor has no clothes. See what I'm getting at? I need someone to say, hey, Chief, that's the dumbest idea I ever heard. Like, have you lost your mind? Like, we really should be considering maybe having someone else run this place.
Yeah. No, it's that checks and balance. You gotta have people that hold you to your thoughts and ideas, and sometimes a bite of reality. And when you don't have that infrastructure in place, you can go stray very quick. Very, very quick.
Very quickly. And that's not a good thing. That's not good for anyone. Because in the end, the person who loses is that kid with less than 5 years on riding the back step because he doesn't know what's going on, right? He's just happy to be here, right? He's just happy he has this great job. And what he's going to remember when he's my age, 29 years later, he's going to remember, remember they were arguing about this and that. That's all that went on when I first came on. Because those are the times in your career that you remember the most, right? I was new on the job. I was getting married. I was having my first kids. It was so new to me. It was so great to me. Everything that people did was so impressionable upon what I learned, whether it be good or bad, right? I learned from some terrible people. I learned from some great people. I told you before, the Jack Keatings of the world, the Kenny Gustins of the world, Jeff Kilpatrick. These were people I looked to for great support. There were also people out there that I went, there's no way Jack would have done it. I don't know if that's right or wrong, right?
That's right.
But I guess I've had an opportunity to have some pretty deep conversations in the last few months with a lot of our guys. And it's really about, and this goes to a lot, you need to know who you are as the chief, right? I am by far not the most important people in this place, right? And I say it to the girls here, and the girls and the Deputy Chief of Administration, I say it to them all day. Our job, our main purpose is to make sure every day those trucks go out, those doors go up, those trucks go out, they're able to service the residents of the city. And we, as the leadership in this department, we need to make sure we allow them and get them the tools to do it the most effective, efficient, and safe way. And I've had this conversation, and the realizations come up to me. I made deputy chief in 2010. I was the training deputy from 2010 to 14. Then I ran a shift till 21 when I took over as chief. I have not been on a fire truck for 15 years. What in God's green earth do I know about what they need?
Right.
Seriously, right?
No, I get it.
I go up and I teach at the fire. I'm up at the fire academy this weekend. I teach at the fire academy. I get to throw a pack on. I get to go in a building. I get to do this. I get to do that. I get to talk about a lot of strategy and tactic stuff, which I love to talk to instead of line item budgets and personnel issues. Trust me, this is a home run. My wife is always amazed how thrilled I am when I leave the house on a morning I'm going up to the fire academy. So I get to talk about fire guy stuff, right? Because that's why we joined the fire service. Said it a million times. No one joins the fire service to be the fire chief. Things just happen and you end up in certain roles, right? So that conversation that we've been trying to have is these firefighters right now are doing things that I haven't done in 15 years. These firefighters right now are doing things that I'll never do. I will never take a lithium-ion battery and put it in cell block. and transport it. I will never put out a car, a Tesla fire. I will never, trust me, when I get to a fire and I run the fire, I'm running it from a strategic perspective up here that I understand the entire operation. But I'm not in the weeds.
That's right.
To be in the weeds, you need tools, you need abilities, you need best practices that are best practices, not just because the chief said they were the best practices. See what I'm getting at? So
100%. Yeah.
They need all of that. And they need to be able to say they need that. The fire service is an autocratic environment, right? It's a pyramid. It goes down and there's no democracy here. But there is leading up to the event. I need to know what we need to do the job better, and you got to tell me. That's your job. Whether you're the newest kid on the job or you're the senior deputy, you need to tell us where you are seeing deficiencies. Because you know what? When they lay a line and they're getting me a water supply at 3 a.m. and they have an issue with this hydrant or this hydrant wrench, or they have an issue with that, or this 4-inch isn't working out right, or this 5-inch off the front suction's not working out. If they are not telling me that, I don't know. I just told them to get the water supply. If they don't tell me there's a problem, how am I going to fix it? So as much as I'm incumbent on protecting them and getting them what they need to make sure they're giving me the information to make those changes. Because I'm the guy at the end who's got to make sure the check gets written to buy the stuff or change the policy and this, that, and the other thing.
But an important part of that process, Chief, is like, we have to be sure the rank and file, the backstep guys, the company bosses, they have to know that when they do bring something forward, that it's being heard and you're willing to do something about it because you have the trust within them to educate you on what they need. I think a lot of times the needs and wants fall on deaf ears, or they don't see the fight, right? They don't know that you're fighting for them. And over time, the lack of progress or innovation stymies their growth. And so they don't care anymore, right? And so we have to have, and I made a note while you were talking because something I love talking about, it's like, you're not a chief. You are. But like, if you could still be on the back step, Chief, you probably would. But we need guys like you at the table. The only way we can affect change in the fire service is putting our good people into the process and up the line. We don't want the guys that hide to promote. We complain about all these weak bosses and weak chiefs, right, in the fire service. And those are the ones that didn't have a stellar career, didn't come from the best companies. They hid throughout their career. And you know what? They're not fighting for their people because they're not one of their people. We need guys like you. I say it all the time. We need the good, solid firefighters at the table. I know you want to be a senior man for a 30-year career, but I need you to promote to a chief spot because I need you to have a say at the table.
So I appreciate the kind words. I do. 90% of what I do every day is common sense. How do people want to be treated? Absolute common sense. You know what? When I was a new firefighter, did I get treated like, hey, your ink isn't even dry in the book, right? Well, yeah, I understand there's a pecking order, right? But if I had someone who I respected ask me a question of what I thought, oh my God, that would make my month. Those are those little things that you've got to make sure you're empowering these people, because I'll tell you right now, we won't be around forever. And if you're empowering those people, they're going to empower people after them. And that's how the fire service gets better. And so much of that is common sense to me. The whole carrot and a stick thing. You're going to get more with honey than you are with vinegar every day of the week. Now, are there issues? There are disciplinary issues, this, that, the other thing? Absolutely. But when I have a newer firefighter come to me and say, Chief, what do you think about if we can do this? And this kid, he's like, you can see in his eyes, he genuinely is trying to not just make his company better. He's trying to make the department better and the operation better. That makes me, we won. The fight, not me. The fire service won, because now we have this kid who's been on a few years and he says, what do you think about this? And he is genuine and he cares, and he's not just saying it because the chief's in the room and he asked him a question or anything like that. We won. And it's about empowerment when it comes to that. And so much of empowerment's about common sense. Just be a good person. That's all. I have my dear friend, Troy Clarkson. He's the chief financial officer for the city of Brockton. He says his favorite saying, everything in life is about relationships. Relationships up in the chain of command, relationships down in the chain of command. Everybody's got to be there at the table, and I really believe that. And he's had a successful life and career in his world, a different world. I love learning from people outside of the fire service. I'll watch a podcast about a business person. I'll watch a podcast. I'll listen to a podcast. Obviously, always National Fire Radio.
Hey, there we go.
But I'll listen. I like to listen to people outside of the fire service too, because a lot of what they're trying to do is what we do every day.
Yeah. Yes.
They can come and listen to your podcast and learn how to manage and lead in the way they want to, but it's a different world for them. But they can take pieces where I go to them, and I can take pieces from them to see how they work in their world. Because big picture, you got to see the big picture. And in the end, our job is the people business. And so much of the people business is common sense. Go up to City Hall and smile and say hi to everybody, and then I go and ask for a new fire truck. Well, you know what? That helps. If I go up there and I'm grumpy and I have my head down the whole time, I'm not getting my fire truck. And who does that hurt? That hurts the kid riding the back step of trying to drive that old jalopy that's falling apart, right?
There's so much to this. I mean, I love it. And in fact, the Bridging the Gap class that I do, I'm starting to do it for corporate organizations now that have nothing to do with the fire service, because it hits on so many topics that are affecting their organizations too. But what's really cool is how the fire service, we almost take it for granted that it just works for us, where everybody else is dying to have our way, trying to figure out how we do it, and we just do it. And that comes from the top down and the bottom up. It works. But I want to hop back real quick to where you were going with that, because it goes back to the initial conversation about moving into a new firehouse and giving ownership, because that young kid is watching how it plays out. And he sees that the chief of department is empowering his people, empowering his companies, his bosses, his backstep firefighters. And they're then paying it forward by wanting to make themselves better, which then makes them personally better, which makes your fire company better, which makes your department better, but ultimately makes your service to the public top shelf.
Yes.
And so when you give that empowerment and buy-in to your people, the end product across the board, we win. But more importantly, the people we serve win.
So it's funny. Today I was leaving here, and I got a call from Deputy Galligan, who's really been the staple of getting so much of a lot of the stuff with this new facility ready to go. And there was an issue with a piece of something that was going on at the building. And it was something that got lost with the contractors. And those things happen. It's a massive, massive building. And there was a captain and his crew that were handling part of this. They're not even going to be assigned to this building, but it was a training component at this building. And this guy has a real passion for this. And the deputy said to me, he says, Cap, this, and this. And he says, can you get that done? He says, yeah, well, let me see. He says, well, it's your responsibility to get it done. He has the tools. We know he has the tools. He's going to get it done. And he knows he can go back to myself or Deputy Galligan if there's an issue. But right now, this captain who's been on the job 10, 12 years now, 15 years now, is empowered to get that done. And he's used to doing it with his crew. So he's got a couple of young kids in his crew. Now, those young kids don't want to let the captain down. The captain doesn't want to let the command staff down. That is about responsibility. And again, go back to common sense, right? So much of this stuff is common sense. You just put people in positions that you know they're going to succeed. They're going to have some difficulties. You want them to be challenged, right? They need to be challenged. Everybody needs to be challenged. I need to be challenged. I need to learn something every day. Every day I come in this place, I pray to God, I'm going to learn something, whether it be administration at City Hall, whether it be something strategic that I see on YouTube or listening to a podcast or whatever the case may be. Everyone needs to be challenged. So he's challenged. He's definitely going to be challenged by this difficult spot that not because of us we're in that, but we're asking him to fix it. And I guarantee you he'll get it done and be successful. And that will carry with his crew as well.
Yeah, and those young kids then, when they get challenged with a project in their 10, 12-year, 15-year tenure, they're going to do the same exact thing, right? Because they lead and they follow, and then they lead and teach. Yep. Because it just makes sense.
Yep.
You said something before too that caught my attention. You go, I don't want a bunch of sheep rolling down the road.
No.
Right?
No.
I don't want a bunch of sheep coming up the road. And there's so much to that, especially in the fire service, right? It's you empowering your people through common sense and setting them up for success. That is how we win. And I heard something the other day, Chief, that really stuck out to me. They said, you want buy-in, challenge your people. Don't give them an easy task. Challenge them. When you give them something easy, it's almost like you're throwing them a softball. There's no pride in that. There's no ownership. There's no sense of responsibility and empowerment through that. But give them something a little bit more challenging, and the buy-in is just that much better.
And don't think they don't see that. Don't think they don't see that.
Yes.
What you are doing is you throw them that softball, they're like, that's what the chief thinks of me? It's the crap he's going to give me, right? We had a fire recently, a Sunday afternoon. Classic Sunday in an Italian household. I got multiple pots going. I'm cooking all this stuff. And they strike a second. And as I'm getting in my car, the deputy's striking a third. Things ripping.
There you go.
When I pull up, things going pretty good. They knocked down a lot of the heavy overlapping fire, but it's still going pretty good. They were coming from another outside fire extended. The companies were all out of like line and things like, you know who's responding, who's getting
just another day in Brockton, Chief.
So as I'm walking up, I had a guy. I parked way down on the main road. I'm walking up. It's a neighborhood with all 2.5 and 3 deckers, good size houses. Coming up the street, and the driver has probably got about 3-4 years on the job of one of the companies that was hooked into a hydrant. And he looks, he's wide-eyed when I come up the street, and he says, Chief, we're going to need an engine because because of the way the position was, they were the third dude. They were laying in where the other company lays out. We have like this 1, 2, 3, 4 arrival that works very well for us. So he says, we're going to need that company on that hydrant. I said, okay, you got a and I just looked at him as I'm walking by, because again, this is his realm, right? You got a hydrant assist on it. He says, yep, we're good to go. He says, but we're getting real low volume out of there. I said, okay. I go, do you have an issue that you can fix, or do you need me to say you're doing the right thing? Like, and I kept kind of walking. I smiled at him, and he kind of smirked me. He goes, no, we're good, Chief. And he was kind of making sure I saw a soft 4-inch. He wanted me to know that he was on top.
That's
that
right.
is huge. Because you know what? He took huge pride in knowing that, like, he didn't want the chief or anyone to see that his 4-inch coming up the street really wasn't flowing a lot of water, and we had a lot going on. And that showed to me that very minute. And you remember where I'm sitting. He was working yesterday. That kid, the engine company 5's on the other side of the building here, but he made it a point to let me know. And every time I see that kid, I think that because he's a quiet kid, just comes to work, does his job, understands what his role is. And I was so happy he wanted me to, or someone that was like in a leadership role, to know. And they fixed the problem. Next thing you know, we got plenty of water. Now that's my role. We're getting the other company to hook into that hydrant assist valve. But I love the buy-in when they, like, it wasn't like he was just like, I don't know, hey, he could say, hey, fire's going to go out. I don't know, there's enough water in there. Right. I don't know. He could say that, right? But he didn't. This is a kid who's a quiet kid, unassuming, blend in with the wallpaper, right? And that's okay. But when the rubber meets the road, this kid does his job, and that's, and especially with a 3-year guy, that's great to see.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. To see somebody with 3-4 years into the job, to have that sense about him and the situation at hand, and I mean that's an all-star move.
Yeah. It's just pride, and I love people who have pride in everything they do. I love every bit of it. I was telling, we just had the Memorial Day parade and ceremonies, and I was in the honor guard when I was a firefighter, and it was run well, but Charlie Haywood, who runs the honor guard now, he is former Marine, squared away. We were done because we were facing, the body was facing where the honor guards were, up towards the front of the stage, and we walked away. I looked at him, I said, Charlie, I was good in the old honor guard. I couldn't be in your honor guard. There's no way I wouldn't have what it takes. But he has pride in his job, but he has such pride in what they do. And you know what? everybody wants our honor guard because of that ownership that he has in that, and what that pride and what he that leadership he has in the honor guard. This guy's a firefighter. He's a senior man on the rescue. I don't know if he'll get promoted to lieutenant captain. I don't know what'll end up happening with him. But my point is, he takes so much pride in that, and that's the big thing. I don't care, and I think it's important to note this. I don't care if you're a 20-year guy on the job who's riding the back step, or you're the chief of department, or whomever you are. Every job you're going to do in the fire service is as important as the other jobs. So do it as best you possibly can.
And this is where I get confused, though, Chief, right? Because, I agree with you 100%. I actually think that if you increase your standards and make it more elite and more involved, the bigger and better buy-in you get with a better product. You're talking about that gentleman with the honor guard, and it is so elite and so tight that people are probably wanting to get into that organization or that group, right? And instead, but then on the other side of the fire service, we're talking about, oh, we've made the standards too difficult. We've raised the bar too high, and we need to lower it again. We need to lower our standards because we need inclusion. We need people to be there. All these issues, right? And I'm like, we can't dumb down the fire service. If anything, we should be pushing for higher standards.
Correct.
And then getting our people to buy in and be a part of that. And I know people listening to this is going to have a hard time, especially in the volunteer fire service. I hear it in the volunteer fire service all the time about how hard the standards are. We can't get people to commit. We can't do this. We can't do that. And then you go 4 zip codes over and they're flourishing. And it's because they take ownership of it and they push their people and empower their people. I firmly believe that is how we do it, right? You want people to make your fire department a priority, and that stems from maintaining a high level of proficiency and expectations.
I'll tell you, and where the rubber meets the road, people's lives depend on what we do. How do you lower standards when you're sworn to protect them? And I don't care if that's in the volunteer service. I don't care if that's in the career service. I don't care where you are. I don't care if you're at the FDNY or the city of Brockton. A human life's a human life, and they are depending on you. And I'll give you the old analogy of the woman, the woman with the newborn will not give that child up to anyone, but she'll give it to her for a perfect stranger. I know that has been told a million times, but it's still so true. I do not envy the volunteer service right now with everything going on with, the recruitment and everything. This is, you read any trade journal, that's all you read about. But to lower our standards lowers what any firefighter coming in. I don't want anyone coming in think they can be a firefighter. There is a special, this is a calling. This is something that only certain people can do. They have to have the right mindset. It is about physical ability, but I've seen some people that don't have the greatest physical abilities, like bulls in a china shop, like doing anything they're needed to do, because it's a mindset. It's putting yourself in the right place at the right time to get the job done. And you're always on that. You're always ready. You're always at the ready. When we lower those standards, we're doing ourselves a disservice, because once we start, the fire service is held to a standard like no other. The minute we lower that, what is the public going to think of us? People forget, that the old school customer comes first. The resident, the citizen, they come first. We need to protect them. We swore an oath to put ourselves in harm's way to protect those folks. If we lower that standard, what is that doing for them? What is that doing for their belief in that we can take good care of them? Why have the fire service then? If you're just going to show up and see, hey, let's see how it works out, right? That's not a good slogan.
I couldn't agree more with you. It is not for everybody, and it's just like not everybody could be a pianist, not everybody could be a plumber, not everybody could be. You just can't. Like, this is a profession that is regarded as probably one of the most important professions in the world, right? We are called upon at any time of the day to provide fire and rescue services to complete strangers. And we don't care. And this is what I love, and I said it before about the fire service. We've been doing it right for years. We don't care what you look like, who you are, what sex, age, religion, color, ethnicity. We don't care. We don't get to care. It doesn't matter. We lay down our lives. We'll put ourselves in harm's way to protect a human being. There is no more of a noble calling than that, right? And so when you look at that, how can we just allow anyone to do that job and not take it one step further? How do we allow anything less than maximum proficiency, right?
100%. And I'll go to this. Anyone I know who sees this podcast will start laughing because I have never been a fan of the first responder. Like that term goes.
Yeah, I get it.
Up and sideways because they loop a lot of people into first responders, whether it be after September 11th, whether it be after the pandemic. There's everybody's vital. No. Firefighters are different, right? Police officers are different, right? But when you look at that word first responder, we're the first ones there. We're always there first. When you have a building collapse, when you have a massive wildland fire like we've been having like crazy, who's there first? The firefighters in those local communities, whether it be career, call, volunteer, they are there first and always first. And they will lay the groundwork for how that will play out long term or short term, whatever it is. And when we start to break down and not have that as our mantra that we need the best and we always need the best, everyone needs to be elite in fire service. Listen, I have ladder companies, I have engine companies, I have a heavy rescue company, I have a squad company. Listen, everybody has to be at the top of the game all the time. And if you're not, you need to go home, right? The minute you're going to say to yourself, I'm not going to be at the top of my game, hang your gear up. It's time to go home because you're doing nothing for anyone, including your brother and sister firefighters.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I think we have to be more protective of who we are and our identity, and we can't let our identity slip away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't like vanilla, Chief. I'm a coffee and pecan ice cream type of guy. I don't like vanilla. You know what I'm saying?
Something with stuff in it every day of the week.
Something with stuff. Well, it's something unique and different, you know, and that's what I think we are. I don't think we can be lumped into one category and be vanilla. Firefighters in the fire service, it is something truly unique that 99% of the world can't fathom or understand. Period.
We had a kid come in years ago. I was the training deputy, and Chief Francis, who was one of my predecessors as the chief, he actually had a kid come into the office, and I was up here doing something, and the kid said, "Listen, this isn't for me." He had been on a few years. He goes, "This isn't for me. I'm moving to Florida. I'm just going to do something else." And Richie at the time was like, "Hey, it's a big world. Go do what you got to do," which is great. He kind of said, "You don't have to be a firefighter," right? He started to walk out. I stopped him and shook his hand, and he says, "Am I letting you down?" I said, "Let me down. I'm prouder of you than I am a lot of people. You want to know why?"
Yeah, I got a lot of respect for you.
You realize this isn't for you, and you realized how important this job is early on, and I'm not saying you don't have what it takes, but you don't want to have what it takes. You don't want to be in that position to do that. And when the rubber meets the road, you need to. You need to be able to do those things. And if you don't feel that way, thank you. Thank you for being a man and stepping into the chief's office and stepping away. That was courageous because most people wouldn't do that. They'd fake it for 30-something years and potentially put themselves, others in harm's way for no reason.
Yeah. That's a good. Hey, we need men in this job. I'm not. That's not a sexist remark. That is we want people. Again, we don't want sheep coming up the road, right? This is what we need, and this is what the public blindly expects and deserves. Period.
Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not the guy on the fire ground, and anyone who works with me will tell you that I'm not going to coddle someone and tell them, "Well, I need you to throw a ground ladder to that window because there might be someone up there. We got to protect our firefighters." I'm going to say, "Ladder the building." Well, why? Because I effing said so, right?
That's right.
And right now, we can talk about that later. And I am a true believer in after actions because I believe hot washes. I believe everybody, including myself, learns from that. I learned where I maybe should have made a different decision or whatever the case may be. I hope everybody learns something from it. But right now, this is the way we're doing it. And there's a reason I'm the chief. You're this role, you're that role, you're that role. You know what I'm saying? So as much as I say we need someone to say the emperor has no clothes, we also need leaders who are going to lead when we need to make tough decisions. And there are going
That's
to
right.
be, trust me, there will be very tough decisions in the fire service in your career, whether you're the new kid on the job or whether you're the captain, whatever role you play, senior man, whatever it is, you have to make the tough decision. And that's not always easy.
No, and that's why we need the very best people in those positions that are making those decisions, right? I mean, it's one thing to be a backstep fireman to make a decision on how to enter in the rear or how to throw a ladder or where you're going to make your cut or how you're going to stretch. But it's another when you start climbing that ladder, now you're running a company or now you're running a battalion or you're the deputy or become a chief of the department. I mean, we need the right people in those positions that can make those decisions when they are called upon to do so.
I had a fire shortly after I made chief, and again, I had been a deputy for a long time and run a number of substantial incidents, right? And I had a lieutenant who had been a lieutenant a few years. I really hadn't had much interaction on the fire scene or at incidents with him. And he came up and they showed up in the ladder, and I told him, I need you to open the roof. And he comes up to me and says, well, where would you like me to do that? I said, and I looked right at him and I said, that's your job to figure out. I need the roof open. And he came down afterwards and he came over to me and I said, Lou, I said, understand, this was, everything's out, we're picking up. And I said, Lou, understand something. That's not my role. Your role is to go up there and open the roof. Your role is to make sure your crew's ready to do that job. You have to look at the roof, see what you got to do with the roof. You got to, make some strategic decisions when you get up there. Can they start the saws? Do we have the right saws? What kind of, those are all the decisions you need to make. I'm making the bigger picture that we need the roof open because we're cooking the guys like baked potatoes in the building right now. And I need to let the hot stuff out. Right. And he kind of like, he chuckled and he says, when it was coming out of my mouth, it was like toothpaste out of the tube. I couldn't get it back. And we actually laughed.
Yeah, right.
I think again, it was a guy that I hadn't worked with in the past really that much. I knew of him. I knew who he was. I didn't have him in drill school. That was when I was still in the groups. And I think, he was feeling me out. I was feeling him out, and that's good. Like I think he was fearful of doing something I didn't want him to do.
Right.
But that again, you know what? If he went up there and cut a hole and it wasn't the greatest spot, I'd say, hey, why'd you cut the hole here? Well, I thought about this and this. Well, good. Okay, at least you were thinking, right? Everybody's going to make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody does great things every day. And you hope the greats outweigh the mistakes. But, that's everybody needs to know their role on the fire ground. And they need to understand what we're trying to accomplish, and seeing the bigger picture. That's why I believe so much in hot washes. We had a hospital fire, the Brockton hospital. You had sent me a text after it. We evacuated 172 people. I didn't let anybody leave that scene. Now, I had chiefs from all over the place. We hot washed that thing right afterwards. Well, we're going to have an after action chief. We're talking about it now because I want to know. I sent people off to do a lot of jobs. Whatever those were. We're talking about that now because I need fresh perspectives. And I got up the next morning at 2 a.m. and I think I filled like 6 legal pads of what everybody told me, just so we knew we had it all down, because it was a monumental event in this area for anyone, you know what I mean? And it was important to get that information when it was in their heads and it helped me to learn, geez, all right, maybe I should have made a better decision here. Maybe I should have done this. So it worked.
Did you come up through your fire service career with hot washes being a part, meaning like who inspired you or who mentored you to value after action reports like that? Because you've mentioned it a few times now that this is important to you. And then you mentioned just before, you said mistakes. And I'm a firm believer that we have to learn from our mistakes. And part of that is the hot wash or after action. Did you, when you were a young fireman, did people, the accountability of your actions on the fire ground, were there hot washes or for whatever after action? Now they're after action, whatever. But how was it when you were young? Is that part of why you're so passionate about it today?
I'll tell you, no. Yes and no. So not when I was a young firefighter. When I was a young firefighter, no, it wasn't. It wasn't really, because you're talking the early, late '90s into the early 2000s. Those things probably weren't even on the East Coast, especially talked about back then. It was kind of like.
But the senior guys in your company were holding you accountable every time you took that tool out of the cradle, right?
No question. If I put that nozzle down,
Yeah,
it's gone. I wasn't.
that's
I better hold on to that thing
right.
with dear life. 100%.
But
No,
that's
I agree.
that.
But it wasn't
But
a
that's an important
formalized.
part of your foundation, then, right?
Yes, it was
Yeah.
not formalized. Absolutely, they held me very much accountable. Right.
Yes.
I think I'll tell you an interesting story. Later on in my career, I was a captain, and I was working downtown for the Deputy Chief Tim Murphy. And Tim Murphy just passed away a couple of weeks ago of Parkinson's. He was a real mentor, and he was a guy that I looked to my whole career. From when I worked in EMS prior to getting on the fire department, he was the training deputy in Brockton, and I'd do all their EMS classes. Then I got on the job, and I used to look. I never worked for him until I made captain. Never worked for him. And we went to a call one night, and I'll never forget this. We had a boiler problem in the basement, and we go down. It was maybe a delayed ignition, some nonsensical call.
Right.
And we go downstairs, and it's me as the captain, the lieutenant who was similar experience level, similar, like he got on maybe a few years after me, and our two senior men. The guys were standing back, and the senior man goes up, yeah, it's this. He takes out the tool bag, does this, does that. We finish up. The deputy's kind of looking in the downstairs, walks in, takes a look. You guys good? This, that, the other, whatever. We get in the trucks, and we go back, and everybody goes to watching TV, goes upstairs, reads the paper, whatever the case, has a cup of coffee. And I'm in the office doing my report, and the deputy walks around the corner because I was in the same station where the shift commander is. He walks around the corner. He says, we just didn't do anyone. We did everyone that was at that call, which is, 2 engines and a ladder and the deputy chief. We did everyone at that call a disservice. I go, why is that? What do you mean? Like, I was kind of like floored. And I'm thinking to myself, did we screw something up? Is the boiler guy there telling us we messed up the boiler? And I know this sounds crazy because it's not a big fire, but he says, I had 4 kids that got under 3 years on the job, and we didn't even talk about what we did there. He says, from this point forward, every incident we go to of any substantial being, we're going to do a hot wash. Afterwards, not a hot. I don't think he called it an hot shower. We're going to get together and talk about what we did. And that always stuck with me afterwards. And I think we kind of made him bigger. I think all the shift deputies do them now. Not necessarily like I'm not always involved in them as the chief. I might leave a little earlier than that. But not necessarily. I'm not necessarily always involved. But I think all of our shift deputies do them now. So I think we always learn for something. We always had the accountability to learn. And trust me, I had Captain Keating or one of those, the senior man, Chuck Davis at the time, when I was on Squad A, pull me aside and say, hey, listen, next time you're doing this, do this. Or, hey, wait till we tell you which line to stretch before you stretch it. Or, hey, slow down with this. Or, 100 times. But it was never formalized. I think my department, we have a lot of guys who've been on a ladder their whole career. We have a lot of guys who've been on an engine their whole career. We have guys that haven't stretched a line into a building, really, unless they go across the floor in a 2-piece house. It just doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, right.
The guy on the roof needs to know why the guy inside needed that hole open. The guy inside needs to know why it took so long. And then they say, hey, we had like 4 layers of asphalt shingles up there. Well, the guy inside goes, oh, that's pretty significant. That's why it took so long to get the hole in the roof. It gives a better understanding for everyone on the fire ground. And then the deputy's aide, the deputy has an aide in each group, and the deputy's aide can give his perspective of what he saw around the back while the deputy or myself was commanding the fire out front. Or maybe he went to the front door to kind of get eyes on real quick. Or maybe he was talking to the residents. This is what the residents told us about what went on. So you're getting a perspective. Sometimes I'll sit in a hot wash right after a fire. Everyone's got a cup of coffee at the scene, and we're talking about this, and I learned things I didn't even know while the fire was going on that are very important things that help me moving forward. So everybody needs to be learning all the time.
So what's your style then? Do you like to do it? I mean, I know you mentioned the larger scale. We got a lot of mutual aid in there and so on, but even for a single family, fire, you guys will do it right at the tailboard?
Absolutely. We'll get everybody. No one usually gets returned. The deputy will usually get everybody together. I'll usually say to him, if I'm leaving, bring this up with the hot wash, or do this, or just touch base on this real quick. And again, I'll stay for a lot of them. Like, I'll be there for a lot of them, but I might have to get out of there because I got something else going on administratively. I have to get back to. Say, hey, if we, when you get them together for a hot wash, talk about this, and they'll do it right out in the street. And it's funny. There are pictures. Bobby Myers, who's a former fire alarm operator of ours, he has 105firephotos.com, and all fires of all the South Shore of Massachusetts. And there are pictures of us, the whole group of guys that's still there, all huddled up, talking about, okay, what
I
did
love
you
that.
do? First two engine, what did you do? You laid out, what did you do? Any issue with the hydrant? Okay, you guys laid in, hydrant assist valve, no issues. All right, so when we went defensive, were you already into the ladder company with the 4-inch? So they'll talk, and so he has a picture. He'll have a picture, and everybody's like this, looking in, kind of, because we don't want people to. We don't, if there's a mistake, we don't want the general public across the street to know that we're talking about issues.
Right. But it's a big huddle.
It's a big huddle. And I
Yeah.
think it gets everybody together, especially when you do a great job. It's kind of it's like the high five moment. People are happy.
Well, there's so much to that because you give a voice to a 1-year man. You give the opportunity for somebody that might not have the opportunity to speak often enough to have input into strategy and tactics or anything, but he's operating alone in the rear. I need his perspective. Now at the hot wash, we can get that perspective, and it's a teaching moment, but it's also a learning moment. And it also puts everybody, I think, on an even playing field, that the engine chauffeur and the truck driver are just as important as the company boss that day or the backstep kid because, they have a say in the hot wash about what they did. Everybody was a participant on that fire ground.
Yes.
And I think it brings tremendous value. And then it also when it's done correctly, when it's led from the top and the top starts with, this is what went down, this is what I think I might have been able to do better. What about you guys? That sets the tone right there that it's okay to give me your report and tell me what you think. And it's okay if you fumbled. It's okay if you didn't make that second floor quick enough with your stretch or you came up short one length or whatever it is. Let's talk about it because it makes us better. And when you have an environment that allows for that type of free-flowing conversation and people don't have to be overly reserved because they're worried about the reprimand that will follow, right? Unless it's egregious and is deserved, right? But for the most part, we're all making mistakes on the fire ground every single day, and we're learning from them. So let's learn from each other.
No question. I couldn't agree with you more. That's such a value, and I think it allows everyone, like you said, to see the big picture and to understand how they can get better. Again, whether you're the backstep kid or the chief of department, it doesn't matter. So
yeah,
it works.
Yeah, I love it. I listen, man. Chief, we need strong leaders in the fire service. We are struggling in a lot of places for that. I see it all over, and it happens. And I think when we don't have strong leadership and a built-in trust in the system, that is how our people can go astray very quickly. And it is unbelievable how quick a company or an organization can come apart. And it takes, and I stress this all the time, I mean, the amount of work it takes to keep something intact, right? You think about how many guys or how many companies are running on the reputation of yesterday, right? The guys that built that company 25 years ago, is the company as good as they used to be?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I listen, I couldn't agree with you more on that. I think, again, when you get buy-in and you allow the voice and people feel like they're being heard, it assists you in getting people, you want all the ships heading in the same direction, right? And when people are getting buy-in, those ships are going to head in the right direction. They're going to all head in the same direction because you can't have people going like this. And if that's the case, you got bigger problems. And again, I go back to common sense. I was and I know we've talked about this, I'm sure. I was a sponge at everything I did when I came in. I listened to everybody all the time. I don't care if it was my shift deputy or who didn't even know my name yet, or the guy that was in the rack next to me talking about whatever else he was talking about, or the guy on the back step, or the company officer. I listened to every single thing, good, bad, or indifferent. And you learn from poor leadership, right? You probably learn more from poor leadership,
100%,
than you'll ever learn from good leadership, because you take. And this is I had very good leaders when I was a new firefighter, and I thought the whole department was like that, right? And then I get promoted to lieutenant, and you have a roving role. You get assigned to a group, and you go out and you rove. So you kind of fill spots around the city. So there's one or two rovers in each group, and you fill lieutenants or captain spots around the city. And I remember going to some places going, oh my God, how did they get things done here? Like it was really. And then you go to companies where I'll never forget. I filled in as a roving lieutenant. I filled in a company for like 3 or 4 months. The officer was getting his knee done, and I had never worked with these guys before. And like simple things about equipment stuff, I was like, wow, I don't know how good I had it. Like, so now I got my mindset, right? How can we make this better? Let's get this done. Like this guy comes back. These guys are going to be, all ships in the same direction. And I learned from the lack of their knowledge indirectly of what, their boss, his attitude was just touch it when I tell you to touch it, and don't do this and don't do that, and we don't want you to. It was always a negative connotation. And I learned so much from start with yes, or start with how do we get this done versus no. And I have, trust me, I've been talking to a lot of guys lately about things we can do, and I've had some crazy things brought to me, right? Not bad things, just things like could potentially be cost prohibitive, could potentially create other problems. But I think it's important for them to understand you're listening to that and you want to make it right. How can we do this? Let's look at that. Let me think about a couple of things. I'll get back to you. Then you have to follow up with that loop too. That's the other thing. I think it's one thing for the boss or the company boss or whoever that is to go around to his guy and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you want to do about this? Hey, you think I think we could, if we had this tool or we had that tool, and then just go, okay, and then walk away and never talk about it again. That's worse, right? That's worse. Because now you're a false front. No one cares, right? The boss really doesn't care. Again, it goes back to common sense. Treat people the way you want to be treated. It's a paramilitary organization, so there has to be structure, there has to be discipline, there has to be a pyramid of how things are going to work. But when you are the boss of something, whether you're the senior man on the company or the company officer, you have a role to play in that. And I have some senior men here that take that role very seriously. And they'll be saying, don't bother the captain with that. Don't bother the lieutenant. Let me talk to him about this. We'll get this quick. And they're very good because they get right back. You know what I mean? They'll get right back to the guy or whatever, and or the captain will say, hey, so and so told me about you. You had an idea about this. I think that's a good idea. Let me run that through the training division, see if we can start working on something like that. This might be something that might be innovative for the whole department. You've got to close those loops.
Well, and so, I talk about the power of yes, right? It's so easy to say no. I mean, we're programmed to say no because when we say yes, there's this sense of empowerment to the person that you're saying yes to, but what it also requires is tremendous work. And that's exactly what you're talking about, right? It's like when you say yes to somebody, it requires something of you. If you shut it down with a very quick no, you're moving on. It's no work to you. It's no struggle or effort on your part because it's a simple no and you move on. When you say yes, you now have to go all in on it and allow for the yes to work. So it takes work when you say yes, but that's where the success is. That's the secret sauce. It's the work. This is work.
It is work. And I had a conversation recently with a newly appointed chief, been on the job about as long as I have. Friend, longtime friend, worked in EMS with him before we went into the fire service, and he became a chief in a town not too far from here. And it was a department that struggles. They struggle with, they haven't had great leadership. They haven't had people who, at all levels. Now, I'm not talking about the chief, whatever. And we had a conversation about, like you just said, the power of yes, or the power of let's talk about this. How do we get this done?
Yeah.
And it might be something when they hit you with it, you're like, oh my God, how's this going to work? But you don't tell them that. You tell them, tell me why we're going to do this. And you know what I do as the chief? When I bring up an idea, I have this great idea. Tell me why it's not going to work. Because I'm all in, right? Well, tell me why this isn't going to work, right? And but when you have the people coming up to you for that, all right, tell me how we're going to get this done. And you know what? A lot of times they have great ideas. A lot of times they might have a great idea. They just don't have the skill set to get it where it needs to be because they don't have that rank. They don't have that ability. And that's why they're coming to a senior person or an officer, because they're the ones that are going to get that done. And shame on that boss at whatever level, whoever that person is that can be the conduit to get it done. Shame on that person for saying no. It's all, and I think this is why I talked about my friend Troy Clarkson, the CFO. I think this is why he and I get along so well, because we see a lot of things from that same perspective. I'll go into his office and I'll never forget. I went in and I said, "Hey, I need a new ladder truck and we need to do this and we need to do that." And it was like, "All right, what are we going to do?" So the next day I said, "Boy, that was pretty easy. I need another new ladder truck too." And I went in. We actually got 2 new ladders and a new engine out of my whole conversation, because he was willing. He didn't necessarily have to do all the work. I had to do a lot of the legwork, but he understood I was going to do it. He just had to be the guy who was going to find the financial way to get it done. And he knew how important it was. I don't go to him with crap. I go to him with what's important. So when he saw that, we were able to get it done. And it makes a huge difference right now. So leading with yes makes a big, it's very easy. Shut it down. Nope. Don't touch that. Don't touch this. Go over there, stand in the corner, whatever the case may be. When you lead with yes, when someone comes to you, or you lead with, all right, tell me your thoughts and how can we get this done? And that's not only getting them in the ballpark to say, hey, he's listening to me. It's empowering him to, holy crap, now I got to get some stuff done. Now,
yes,
work on him now too. It's work on
yes.
him. All right, how are you going to do this? Let's go back to the guy I talked about that we had a problem in the building. He was all about working on this project. And you know what? Now there's a hiccup. And you know what? As I'm sitting here with you, I get a text from him to myself and Deputy Gallagher. We've worked on this, and we think we have a solution.
Awesome.
That's a big deal. And with negativity in the fire service, you're going to drain the life out of people, and people aren't going to want to work there anymore. We see it a lot. And the grass isn't always greener, right? I'm sure in the volley service, you have this as well. People are going to leave. They're going to go work for a different fire company, this, that, the other thing, because they're not getting the respect they deserve here. My very good friend in the town next door to me he's had some people that have left his department, and they've realized now the grass isn't always greener. And now it's that's important. We have a great ability to retain people, but not everybody does. And I think sometimes when people get out there, they go, "Wow, it's a different world in other places," right?
Yeah, we always take for granted what we have in front of us, right? And nothing is perfect, and all departments have their issues. There's no doubt, right? So to think that it's going to be so much better somewhere else, unless you're in a terribly toxic environment or a place that just doesn't promote the betterment of the fire service, I don't know how much better it's going to be. I agree with you. I think the other problem too is we're so used to surrender or giving up instead of buckling down and trying. And I have a slide in my program. So much of this tonight is literally what my Bridging the Gap program talks about, right?
And I love that program.
Yeah, thank you. It has come. Not only that, but Chief, I was honored a couple weeks ago. I did it at the Massachusetts State Fire Academy for 65 career fire chiefs. It was you want to talk about intimidation? Walking into that room, I go, look at all the gold in this place, right? And you know what I reminded?
Right? Was that the
what was that?
Was that the senior fire officer forum? I was out of town.
It was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right,
but what was really fun about that day and how I got through to all the men and women in that room, right? Because they're all career fire chiefs, tenure in the fire service, this and that. And here I am, down below talking about my program and all these things. But what I kept doing in that program was bringing it back to reminding them when they were in love with the fire service. And I said, you have the ability to find that again. If you find that you've strayed, or you find that it's not what it once was for you, and you find yourself not in love with the job or falling out of love with it, I challenged them that day. I said, go find that little slice that once made you happy about this job and think about that, make that connection with your people again. And I thought it was a great day. I received a tremendous amount of feedback on it. I thought it went very well. I was very proud of that program. But I was saying in the program, I put this slide up, and it's a guy in the back of a firehouse just throwing a 24 by himself. And I said, you can be the change, but consistency matters. And I think we're so busy pounding our chest about how great we are reminding everybody, look at me, I'm so good, that so many times the work we're putting in is just for the optics and not actually truly for the work to make yourself better or make your organization better. And the grass is not always going to be greener. But my thing is, before you even go walk in somebody else's yard, have you put in enough time and energy and effort to make sure that you've exhausted all opportunities to make a difference or make a change within your own organization before you decide to leave? I think today a lot of people are not willing to put the work in anymore, and they just fade away.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But that's like, I look at it, that's my job to give them that empowerment to do that.
Yes.
That's, I've been, this July, I will have been the chief for 4 years. I'm pretty comfortable with what I think my role is now. I say it to every chief that I ever meet that just got promoted to chief. I said, you'll now find out what the chief's job is. It's easy to see what you think the chief does on a daily basis until you sit in the seat and you go, holy crap, I didn't realize this, that, the other thing. After 4 years, I think I've finally wrapped my hands around my role. My role, like we said in the very beginning, is to make sure all those doors in that firehouse go up every day. Those guys go out and they take care of the residents of the city of Brockton. In doing so, we can have a whole lot of fun. And let's steer the ship in the right direction and make sure we're having a whole lot of fun. Because this is the greatest job in the world. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what rank you are. And again, I'm still, you said it at the beginning. I'm the chief, but I'm still a firefighter.
Yes.
I still want to throw a pack on. I still would love to force doors. We go mutual aid a lot of times, whatever, around, right? Well, I'm not the boss outside when I go mutual aid. So I show up to the command post with my pack on my back and ready to go to work, and put me inside. Let's do something. I'll take a crew inside, whatever the case may be, because that's my comfort zone, right? That's what I want to do. That's where I feel alive, right? Because that's why you do the fire service. No one does this job to be the chief. And like, you gotta have if you showed up on day one in drill school and said to me, I'm gonna be the chief here one day, I'd probably go and have you get another psych exam, because I don't think anyone jumps into the realm thinking, I'm gonna be the boss of this whole place one day. Well, like, you don't even know what that entails, right? You join the fire service because you see the fire truck go down the road, you see the good they do for people. Everybody loves them, admires them. You want to be part of that team environment where they work together. We don't do anything alone. I loved all of that. That's what I saw as the be all end all. You don't join it to be the fire sergeant, to be the fire chief. So every day, like, and this is why I've told you I like to get out, because I'm in my office early. I like to get out during the day to get in the firehouses. I don't get to do it as much as I'd love to, because I'd love to spend the whole day out there. I have other responsibilities, right? I guess the point is, if I was in the firehouse too much, I wouldn't be doing the things to make sure I could get the department what it needed, right? But I think you have to love that. Like, I still leave or I still go to a fire and leave the fire ground afterwards as happy as I was as a 24-year-old kid, brand new on the job. As happy as I was then. And I'm in a different role. I'm not forcing doors. I'm not stretching lines, but I'm playing the role I'm in now, right? And I'm just as happy with that. I love the smell. I love the smell of a cup of coffee at 4 a.m. when you smell smoke everywhere, and that coffee smells so different than all that. All these little things that are so great about the fire service. And how everybody doesn't want to be a firefighter blows my mind, right? But I guess it can't be. We need bankers, we need plumbers, we need people to do other things, right?
Sure.
But you are 100% right when you said to those chiefs, remember what it is. It's not, listen, you can go to City Hall as the fire chief and get beat up every day. You can go into a council meeting and sitting with a union negotiation, whatever the case may be. There are things that can drain you. But remember why you put your feet and put your shoes on to do this job every day, right? And that's the important.
There's a lot to that. And just the last 2 minutes of you talking about this, the passion behind it, right? The excitement in your voice. For any young kid that's listening to this podcast, I mean, you want to talk about a fire chief with almost 30 years in the fire service chief. I mean, and you have you're talking about that cup of coffee at 4 a.m. over smoky, your clothes are full of smoke and that cup of coffee, it just hits different. And for a fire chief with 30 years in the fire service to talk the way you just did about that, you're inspiring these young kids to value those moments. And I worry that those moments don't carry the same impact it had on me and you to this younger generation. I worry that 4 a.m. cup of coffee isn't the same. And I think it is in many firehouses, but I think in a lot of firehouses it's just not anymore. And that's one of my biggest worries, right? It's like, and then I get refreshed because I have a conversation with you, and like I said, your excitement and passion tonight and the way you just hit that conversation, it inspires me to like go have a cup of coffee with the guys. That, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it is infectious when you work or volunteer with people that are into it and they're into the people they're with. Like, who wants to work or ride a fire truck with people you don't like? Nobody. It's so much easier when everybody's on the same page. So much easier when there's respect amongst the crew and everybody respects one another and they're friendly. I'm not saying you got to be their best friend, but you have a respect and an interaction with them that is positive, right? Like, the negativity truly is just tearing us apart in life, not just the firehouse, but in life.
I spoke of earlier. I spoke of Deputy Chief Tim Murphy, who, again, incredible individual we lost a short time ago, and he used to say all the time, everybody joins the fire service for the right reasons. Everybody walks through those doors their first day of drill school for the right reason. There's something along the way for that guy who's, like you spoke of, that's sitting in the corner, that's miserable, that doesn't want to be doing the job anymore, that, he's got bills at home, he's got this going on, he's got that going on, he doesn't like this guy that he works with. There's those little things that happen. I really, and I know it's crazy, I personally, I know those guys in my own department, and I try to, I almost focus on them to say sometimes, oh, remember this, especially if it's a guy I used to work with. Hey, remember we had this fire, we found all the stolen sunglasses, and we were putting them on, pulling ceilings, and I have pictures of us with stolen sunglasses. I probably shouldn't say that. I hope there's no cops. We put them back in the boxes and left them there. I think,
of course.
But then you get the guy laughing. You get, remember that? That's the beauty of the fire service. This is the best job in the world. It's so fun. It's so exciting. It's so, not even the going to fires. It's the shenanigans in the firehouse that I get.
Yes.
I walked in the other day and I was on the phone with something, and I walked by. I went to go close the door, and they had a small thing of water on top, and it came down, hit me in the shoulder, and went down. I'm on the phone, and one of the guys down the end of the hall goes, and I kind of laughed, and I waved to him, and I'm still talking. I get off, I walk out, and I go into the deputy's office, and the deputy says to me, he looks at me, and he goes, Chief, that wasn't meant for you. And I said, what? I had literally, in the 5 minutes from that conversation walking in, I said, what? And he goes, the water. I go, oh, come on. I'm still a fireman, Meaning,
I love that.
That's still my roots. I mean,
that's right.
I would hope if this chief gig didn't work out, I could jump on the back step somewhere and still do this job. You know what I mean?
I love it.
So,
yeah,
that's what it is.
There's so much to that, and I think that is remembering the roots, and there's nothing better. Mickey Farrell and I, we talk all the time, right? We become really good friends, and Mickey has top floor tactics, and he's super smart in his knowledge that he shares and his tips and tricks and strategy, tactics, all that stuff. He just really knocks it out of the park. And we were talking about it recently, he and I, and he said it's not so much all the fires we go to, but it's the people that we go to the fires with.
That's awesome.
And there was just so much to that, because you could go to a great first due job, but if you're not with the guys that you want to be with, it doesn't hit the same. The back step banter, the kitchen after the fire, the front step, the back step after that fire, it just doesn't hit the same. It really does come down to the guys that we're going to the fires with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the memories. And that is where, when you talk about trying the sunglasses on and you're trying to reignite, trying to bring up those feelings they once had about the job was fun, it was good, I enjoyed it, and it's good that there's still guys like you that recognize they might be struggling in their own journey. So, hey, let me throw them a softball and see if I can get them to jump in a little bit here, you know?
Yep.
There's a lot to that.
Like, I think you see firefighters now that are coming on the job, and I believe this. They have greater stresses than when I came on the job. There's no question. They have different worlds. They might be like leaving after 24 and their wife's going off to work. My wife stayed home
100%.
My kids, and I might have worked a couple of jobs. That was easier for me than going home. And my wife was already had the thing, she had her whole thing. Fighters coming on the job now, I think, are in a more difficult spot. They're dealing with different things. I mean, crazy social media stuff. Like this is not my world, right? And they're dealing with things now that I never dealt with. I never thought of, and I think, we have to recognize that as the leadership of the fire service. Their generation, that world is a different world than the world I grew up in. And you know what?
Yes.
And you know what? When they're in my positions, they're going to be dealing with a generation that was different than the one that they grew up in. And this will continue. Yes. Again, you talk about this all the time. I'm preaching to the choir. But that World War II generation, that Vietnam generation, when I came on, was like these kids. See the car you just drove to work in? You know what I mean? We used to drive old crap. Like that was. It's not bad. It's just different, right?
Yeah.
Just different. And it's incumbent upon us to welcome them with open arms and get the job done. We still have a job to do. Whether I agree with the way the kid lives his life or doesn't live his life or whatever the case may be, when he comes in the firehouse, we got to have fun and we have a job to do when those doors open.
Yeah, and I look at the impact of it, right? I mean, it's all the same. It's just different, but it's all the same. I mean, every generation is just a little bit different than the last. And so, we have to make that work. But I look at what we can instill into these young kids coming in, that if we maintain this line, you guys are moving to that new firehouse, but all the stories, I mean, I think about Brockton when you took me around that city and looked at a couple of firehouses. I mean, just the history there itself and how protective you guys are of the departmental history of the line of duties that have occurred, incidents, heroic thing, all of it. You guys have it documented all over the place in the city with monuments and in every firehouse. I mean, you name it, right? So, like, it's just incredible when you think about all that. We have to make sure that we can maintain to the newer generation that is the standard. This is important, and we want you to learn this and be a part of this, so you're a steward of our history, so that when I'm long gone, when Brian Nardelli's long gone, I know that I can trust in you to still have a passion and share the history of this department.
And I hope the generation that came before me looks at us that way now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hope the Jack Keatings of the world and the Kenny Gussins of the world and the Kenny Gallions of the world look back and go, geez, these guys didn't give up the farm. Like, they're doing it the right way, and they're succeeding, and they learn something from us, and you hope that. And I hope, but I think about the guy when I'm walking up the street with the, not a lot of water going through that that soft 4-inch hose. He wanted to make sure, right? You know what? He bought it. He gets it.
Yep.
He gets it. So you know what? He does. He might be quiet around the firehouse, but he gets it.
Well, and I guess then that's kind of the proof is in the pudding, and it works. And so I think whatever the recipe is in Brockton, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's because we have great people, and I say that all the time. My friend Billy Bassett, I talk to on a regular basis, Lieutenant Squad A. He's the guy that hey, what's the barometer? We're out. James Nee, we came on together. He's the secretary of the union, and I'll say, hey, what's going on with this? What do you think about this? Well, I think this, I think that. They're the barometer. Sometimes again, the deputies will tell me the emperor has no clothes, right? But maybe the 10-year guy in the firehouse won't. But those are the guys. Don't tell me names. What do we need to do to fix this? What do you think about that? These are the guys that might not be in my inner command circle, but they're guys that I trust vehemently to give me good information about where we need to be.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love it. Chief, it's always an awesome conversation with you. It truly is. Well. I love it because it's passion versus passion here. You know what I mean? Like, and I know you have such a love for it, and you know I talked about your love of your city, but you love the fire service. I mean, you are a massive buff. I mean, but the fire service or a Spock, right? A Spock, right? Yeah. But I mean, you guys, but there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I love that. I love guys that just live this job. I love it.
I couldn't. I get to spend all this time here with all these guys, and I get to go to fires, and I get to do a lot of great things. And then like this weekend, I'm teaching flammable gas for a group up at the Mass Fire Academy with a bunch of my friends from other fire departments around Massachusetts that I teach as an instructor with, and I get to go there and I get to hear their stories and all these different things. And I have the best of many worlds right now being involved, and I'm very fortunate that I have people around me every day that just want to work hard and do their job, and excited about just who they are as a firefighter. Like you see some of these kids, they go out the door and their helmet looks like their helmet's squared away good, and they're like, I don't know, those are the things that like I know it might sound crazy to most people, but when I see this kid on the job who's got this cool new shield, and it's a custom shield, and this helmet, he got this like different suspension, and it's down lower now.
Right.
It's like
right.
pride in this job through just the helmet he's wearing right now. You know, that I love to see stuff like that, you know, because, you know, it tells me that, you know, he's put his own personal money, because I didn't pay for that. Right. He put his own heart and soul, his personal money into that to get that done. You know what I mean? I don't know. Those are the little things that when I look around, and I told you, I try to pick up on everything. I want to see that excitement. I want to see that excitement in a kid with a few years on the job that I have when I was a few years on the job. Because I know what they're feeling. I know they have that love for it. When they come out and they know they did a great job, and they're talking and they're excited about what they did. And I go, hey, great, strong work, fellas. You did a nice job. That was a good push. And I know before I even walk over to them, because I can tell by their body language, they've been giving each other a couple of fist pumps, and they're pumped up about what they did. And I want to make sure they know it was noticed. Yeah, you did it. I know you did a good job, but I know you did too. You know, and everybody else out here saw that. And the guys putting the hole in the roof knew that the fire was out before they even got the hole in the roof. And little things like that, you know, that's exciting to me. That gives me the feeling that the fire service is going in the right direction. People feel it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man. A simple attaboy can change the trajectory of somebody's career, man. It really can, you know? Well, I want to say this, Chief. You know, I know you're a busy guy, and for you to take some time tonight to join me and just hopping back on and catching up a little bit, did not disappoint, as always, man. It's always fun. I love this. I mean, I could do this for hours and hours, you know, and but it's a fun conversation fueled by an absolute unconditional love for the fire service, and I would challenge anybody that's here today listening with this it's your story, man. You write the narrative. What do you want it to look like? You know? And if you don't like what chapter you're on, start a new chapter. Yeah, that's it. Great.
You can go 30, 40 years to be unhappy, or you can love every minute of it. Because you didn't join the fire service to be miserable, right?
That's right.
Jump in and make a change. Make that change today and enjoy the rest of your career. If you've been on a few years and you're not happy with it, you can be happy tomorrow. That's the greatest thing about the
I love it. Well, thank you, Chief. Great words to kind of wrap up on. I appreciate you. You're teaching this week in Massachusetts. I'm going to be in Rhode Island this weekend teaching. This is one of those things, and I know you see the importance of this. It's getting out of your own zip code and, you know, living this fire service and seeing how it's done elsewhere only makes yourself better.
No question. No question. You pick up everything. I pick up stuff all the time from everybody. Might work for me. It might not work for me, but at least I heard it and I know how they do it and how we can get it maybe done different, a little bit differently. But similar. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
Awesome.
Brian Nardelli, thank you so much, sir, for joining me.
Thank you, Jeremy.
You talked about multiple pots cooking on a Sunday. I'm going to take you up on that home cooked meal. You didn't invite me, but I'm coming.
You're coming.
I'll hit you up. I'll do that Sunday any day with you, sir.
Absolutely.
But I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you so much, Chief, for joining me tonight. I appreciate you.
Thank you, my friend. Look forward to being back again.
Yeah. Well, episode 200. You were episode 200, and now this is going to be 399.
Wow.
So you're 199 episodes ago you were on. It was actually, I looked it up. It was April 5th, 2023.
Awesome.
So 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. So anyway, thank you. Thanks for joining me. Stay right here. I'm going to sign off the podcast. Come right back to you. Okay, Chief?
Sounds good.
Great. Guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Chief Brian Nardelli out of Brockton, Massachusetts. Hard-hitting chief with an incredible passion for the fire service. And like we said at the end of it, if you don't like where you are today, it's your story. You're writing it. Fix it. Change it. Start a new chapter because you get to do that. And with that, I always like to say at the end of every episode, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it, because when we're talking about the job, we're making the job better. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio. National Fire Radio.